Today, we are joined by Clark Mercer, the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, who is our Trachtenberg School Executive in Residence for this current year. We are thrilled to have you join us for our meet and greet today. As I mentioned, we will record these questions and put this on our website for everybody to hear, and hopefully have more people who want to have individual meetings with you for you to share your insight. So with that, I'm going to start. We always ask our executive in residence to just share a couple minutes of an introduction about your current work and career path.
Sure. Well, thanks, Denise. And I'm looking forward to hearing from the folks that are participating today with your questions. Clark Mercer, the director here at Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, referred to as COG. And COG is a nonprofit association that works with 24 of our local governments in and around the District of Columbia, including DC. So my board members are mayors and chairs of board of supervisors in the region, and we coordinate on a wide variety of policy issues that you kind of wish government was working together to solve. So transportation, transit, homeland security and public safety, clean air, clean water, affordable housing, the unhoused population, issues that all of our jurisdictions are working to try and effectuate, but they realize that they don't exist in a vacuum and they need to coordinate. Originally from the DC area, so after college, I moved back to Alexandria, where I was born and raised, and have always been kind of just a local and state government person. So did a lot of volunteering on different boards and commissions in Alexandria. After grad school, went to LMI Consulting, did that for a couple years, and eventually ended up down in Richmond, Virginia, where I lived with my wife for 12 years. And for 8 of those years in Richmond, I served as the lieutenant governor of Virginia's chief of staff, and then when he became governor, served as his chief of staff for 4 years. So when the last administration of Richmond wrapped up a few years back, we moved back to Alexandria, and I started at the Council of Governments a couple Januaries ago. So I'm almost 3 years in.
Fantastic. Well, the next question is, what have been some of the most pivotal moments in your career, and how did that shape your leadership?
Sure. Well, so right out of GW, out of grad school, I went to LMI Consulting, and after a bit of time there, decided that consulting was not for me at that point in my career. And actually, I was meeting with another student, graduate of GW's graduate school, who kind of almost dared me, to leave the consulting world and go work in public service. And I took a big pay cut and went and worked at the time for is now Senator Mark Warner, but he was running for the U.S. Senate at the same time that President Obama was running his first term for president. And remember telling my parents I'd taken a big pay cut and gone to work on this campaign. And I think that's pretty pivotal because all you learn at graduate school and in public policy, I've always wanted to get as close and high up as I can in government to effectuate good policy. And so I made a decision at that point that I would go work in the public space and try to do that. And then probably the second moment is when Governor Northam named me as chief of staff when he became governor. We hadn't actually discussed my continuing in that role. Lieutenant governor is a lot smaller role for chief of staff. There's a staff of 3, and there's 120,000 folks that work for the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. So to go from that position overnight was a surprise, but it was one of the best things professionally that's happened to me.
Fantastic. So the next question is about challenges or setbacks in your career. How have you navigated them, and what advice would you give for overcoming?
And when I saw this question, I thought, man, I've had a lot of setbacks. I've also been extremely lucky and kind of privileged in my positions and background to get to where I am. It's kind of cliched, but not always taking things personally. I remember I really wanted to work on Capitol Hill. I thought that was like a dream job, and I probably applied to 200 offices and hard to even get a response. And ultimately went and worked on Senator Warner's campaign. And, I always say, people say it's a good learning experience when something bad happens. I do think going through setbacks can be learning, but then once you've learned it once, like you don't need to learn it again. Sometimes it's just like okay to recognize you're going through a tough time. And as my career has progressed, just like the value of friendships, like genuine friendships, means more and more to me. Particularly when I was in Richmond, you have a lot of friends when you're in that position, and you realize pretty quickly. Usually, it's after you submit your last budget, who you don't hear from again, who really was your friend, and who was there to help get to where they needed to get to with your when you're in your position. So, friends really matter. Don't take things too personally, and there's this great quote from Shawshank Redemption, this old movie with Morgan Freeman, and they're talking about at the end of the movie how this guy escaped from prison and he chiseled through the walls of the jail for many years, and they say he was right. It's all about geology, time and pressure count for a lot, and so there's a lot of things you want to work for in public policy that take that are not you don't have immediate gratification. You'll work on for your careers and but if you keep up the time and keep up the pressure, there will be a break. There will be something that happens that provides the opportunity to move on that issue. But you have to have put in the time and kept up the pressure to be ready to act. So,
I love the quote from Shawshank, geology, time, and pressure. That's fantastic. Um, what do you think differentiates you as a leader, and what has influenced the evolution of your leadership through time,
um,
besides geology, time, and pressure?
yeah, well, we'll continue in that vein with another quote that I don't really love. You hear it a lot in DC. This is the way we've kind of always done things for kind of systems and organizations. And I think you've got to be vulnerable enough to let your teams challenge those assumptions. And we did that a lot down in Richmond. There's a way things have been done or way certain policies were in place, and it's okay to ask the question, why was this policy put in place? What purpose did it serve? And is that still relevant? Is that still a purpose that we're trying to serve now in 2025? And probably something that I've had to work on a lot over the years, but to really empower the folks that work with you to take good ideas and run with them and not to micromanage them. You're gonna, an end product might not look exactly like I would design it or come up with, but letting folks around you really, really feel empowered and emboldened to take on big things. And it's a popular topic right now, in government and the whole abundance agenda that's discussed as your client's book. But I think at the end of the day, the what that's all about is just moving things along and not being so grounded in process that you can't move big topics along and get things done. And so that's what I love, and I kind of love working through a bureaucratic structure to try and get big things accomplished. And you can only do that with really, really talented teams and really talented teams that don't look all like me, right? That are diverse and that bring different viewpoints to the table. But when a team feels empowered to like take on big things and get them done, you find yourself to be in a pretty good situation. So,
I love that. That's fantastic. So the last question before we open it up to Q&A from our attendees is, either what is a leadership lesson you wish you learned early in your career, or a piece of professional advice you had that's like, this has really stayed with you?
yeah, well, I need to continue to be a better listener and I need to continue to grow my empathy. I don't think early on I had nearly enough empathy and appreciation for different circumstances and situations that people are bringing to work and weights and responsibilities that folks are carrying around. So being a better team leader by being more empathetic is something that I just need to work on. One thing that I think I've become is a lesson learned is that there's folks sometimes that are critical of you or your organization, and oftentimes it's easy to tune them out, particularly if they're consistently criticizing. Like you can almost easily, from a political perspective, say, "Oh, that person's kind of always criticizing." You need to always kind of keep your ears open and listen to all the incoming, and oftentimes, even if folks are critical, it doesn't mean they're wrong, and to not be desensitized to that. And then I guess the last piece, and this was a piece of advice that was given to me by someone in the Obama administration when I took on the role of chief of staff was, I asked what was a lesson learned from your administration, and it was that administration spent a lot of their time and energy trying to make sure everybody in their party, in their coalition, was on board with whatever policy they were pursuing. And they and when they got to the negotiating table to discuss that policy, the goalpost always shifted to the right because the folks they were negotiating with would point out, "Hey, we agree with what you're talking about, but we've got all these detractors or folks pushing us that aren't on board with this, and they're pulling us further to the right." And so that they said that the goalpost always shifted, and the point that they made to me was that it's healthy and okay to have folks that aren't on board with the policy you're pursuing, and it's okay for them to be publicly loud and critical. That's actually strategically can be incredibly helpful when you're trying to advance something to show that you haven't gone far enough for some groups and some people. It helps keep the debate more measured and keeps you from being pulled further in a direction that you don't want to go. It may be a little confusing, but it's confusing because I didn't do a good job explaining it. But healthy dissension is actually, like, by design, can be pretty helpful in policy making.
Well, that is a perfect way to wrap up our Q&A. I thank you. We are going to